Hey there, how are you doing today? I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. I'm a spirit navigator. Today we're going to be talking about spiritual awakening. Now, spiritual awakenings happen in lots of different ways and for lots of different reasons. And that's why we're going to be talking about it today, because I've done other videos on spiritual awakening, but it just occurs to me that the time that we're in right now that I'm doing this video, there's actually a timeline convergence. Okay. Now, I am not going to get into technical sacred geometry and all of those things, right? I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to tell you very simply what this means is and how this very simply could show up in your life is you're going about your normal day. You're going about your normal life. Maybe things are going on in your life, maybe they're not. Typically, when you have a spiritual awakening, it's around times that are frantic or times where you're worried or times when you're being squeezed in some way at work or through family, or you just feel like things are not going well. Okay. So, because when things are going well, we don't have the impetus, we don't have the energy to jump up off the couch, do we? Right? When like everything's fine, the kids are asleep, or you're tired after a long day's work and you don't care about doing the laundry, you really just need to sit on the couch and veg out. Guess what? You're going to sit on the couch and veg out. But if you realize that the clothes you need for tomorrow are in the dirty hamper, you're going to be like, oh man, I need to get up. I need to do laundry. That is an action. That is something that's causing you to take action. Okay. So the same thing applies in spiritual awareness. Something causes you to take action. So you're being squeezed at work, you're being squeezed at home, maybe squeezed in both places, or you're having health issues or financial issues. Well, what happens is naturally you ask for help. You start saying, why is this happening to me? Like, why? You know what I mean? Golly, all this is going on at work. The last thing I need is for my kid, my grandkid, or my health or my car to also cause me problems. Well, that's the perfect time. This seems to be the perfect time to also throw in a spiritual awakening because you're asking the question, why? Why is this happening? What is going on? Maybe even you start praying or meditating or you light a candle because let's face it, desperate times call for desperate measures. These are not things that you're going to do if life is just humming along, boring, or the usual same old thing. You're not going to be asking, why am I so bored? You're just going to be like, whew, I'm just going to watch this show. So when I talk about timelines converging, yes, I feel my spirit guides are telling me that the timelines are converging right now, and that's going to cause for people to have spiritual awakening. But if you're watching this video in 2030, it's the same thing. You're called to watch this video because you're having a spiritual awakening and you need answers. And you're like, I need answers, Susan. I need to figure out what is going on. Now, what are some of the things that can happen? Some of the things that can happen is that you're smelling something that isn't there, like you're smelling cedar or smoke or vanilla, or in a perfume is common, and you're like, why am I smelling that? Is anybody else smelling that? No, they are not smelling that. It's just you. And so you're like, why? Well, that's because the veil between the worlds, there's literally a little gate that keeps ghosts and spirits and everything else on one side of the gate and humans on the other, because right now in our development, in our evolution, we're not supposed to be mixing together. Humans are in the romper room. Let's face it, we are a young, we're not stupid. We are just young, or we are, it's not even young because I'm channeling this. I'm trying to get their information correct. We are supposed to work out our own problems. Self-study. They're saying humans are in the self-study room. We have limited access, not no access, but a little bit more limited access to angelic realm, to our spirit guides, to our ancestors. So if you're smelling something 9.9 times out of 10, that is an ancestor. That is someone that you know who has departed this world and is sending you a hello. How are you doing? Now, why 9.9 times out of 10 is it an ancestor versus a spirit guide or an angel? Well, spirit guides and angels don't wear cologne. They don't smoke. That would be that would be someone who's been human, who's telling you from a human to a human hello, because you understand that as a human. Okay, does that make sense? So when we have these timeline conversions, which again, 3 times a year at least, and more as we continue through our trajectory on this timeline, you're going to have more opportunities where the veil or the gate between the worlds is open. Okay. But right now, this interesting thing is happening where the timelines are converging. Now, what does that mean? Well, because of humans, we think of time as linear, 11 o'clock, noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. It's linear, it just follows a line. How interesting that it's also a circle, though, and it doubles back on itself because, right, noon can also be midnight. So that's a big clue as to time in general, that time is a spiral and that our timelines are a spiral. So you're going to double back on yourself just the way noon doubles back as midnight. So your timeline goes in a spiral. What that means is that it's not linear, number one. And number two, it means that you're going to double back on yourself. You could meet yourself on a different timeline. Now, you're not supposed to know that because it is hella bad. It's not good for us to mess up other timelines. I personally have spied on various versions of myself that are living right now. So yes, right? I mean, this is when you click off the video if you want to, that's fine. Their time is not linear. It is all happening at the same time. Like for instance, if you cut into a cake, there's layers in the cake. You're cutting through time by cutting through the cake. All the layers are there at the same time. It's not like the chocolate layer doesn't appear until 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The chocolate layer is there. The vanilla layer is there. The strawberry, it's all there if you want to access it. Okay. So when these timelines cross through no intention of your own, like you're not intending, even if you're very spiritually aware, even if you're a psychic medium, even if you do this work, you're still not going to be saying typically, I want to cross paths with my past or my future, right? Because as a human, your job is to be human. Your job is to do the human thing. Even as a psychic medium who talks to my spirit guides all the time, 95% of my day is very human because that's what I'm incarnated as. If I were to spend 50% of my time in other realms or interacting with energies or creatures or whatever that aren't human, I would literally be disabled as a human. I wouldn't be working. I wouldn't be paying my bills. I would be on the street. And I'd probably have a mental diagnosis, even if I wasn't crazy, even if I didn't warrant a mental diagnosis. Okay. So I hope you understand, right, that humans are really only supposed to interact very infrequently, or maybe not, you can interact with them every single day, but it should take up, say, 5 or 10% of your overall human experience for that day. Okay. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Anything more than that, you lose your connection to why you came here. And it's very important. You came here. You incarnated as a human. You came here for the human experience, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the joyous, all of it. You came here for all of it. You want all of that, okay? So now these timelines are converging, and what's going to happen is, because I know, because I already seen it in my own life and I've seen it in other people's lives that I work with, is that again, you're minding your own business. You're not meaning to do anything in particular. You're not looking for this, is another way to say it. And you have a flashback to a past life. Now, this flashback, again, you could be someone who says, Susan, I don't talk to my spirit guides. I don't dream. I don't have visions. I mean, that could be you. Yet you have a flashback to a past life. And this flashback, the reason I'm talking about this is because it's not just a flashback. It's a feelings, emotional. It's almost as if you're experiencing for that 10 seconds the reality of that life. Now, this is not cool, okay? Because again, you're here in this year, in this day, in this timeline. And if all of a sudden you experience being on a ship and being working on a ship that is maybe a schooner, or perhaps you're in a war. What if in your kitchen all of a sudden you're in a war? What if in your living room you're all of a sudden a child begging on the street? Or what if you're in your workplace and all of a sudden you know that you're royalty? It's very disorienting. Okay. It's extremely disorienting. And I would say to you that it can make you question your sanity. I would say to you, doing this work, me regularly, I have questioned my sanity, because you see things that are not real, but yet you know they're real. And it's very hard to square that with our human reality. So going forward, when you have a spiritual awakening, regardless of when it is, and you have these flashbacks or flash forwards, like you could see the future. The future, it all depends on if the emotion that you're connecting with is positive or negative, right? So if you have a flashback and you're royalty, well, that's pretty cool. If you have a flashback and you're in a war and you're under attack, that's obviously very anxiety inducing. And you would then take the opportunity to say, I don't need to experience this right now. You're in the driver's seat. Okay. So spiritual awakenings and this thing with this timeline convergence or crossing, you're in the driver's seat always. So if you're experiencing something you don't want to experience, you simply set the intention, I do not want to experience this. I do not want to know this. I do not want to experience this. You're in the driver's seat always. Set the intention, and eventually it might not be immediately, but it might be 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. It will go away. I think a misconception that a lot of people have is that if I tell it to go away, it'll never come back. And that's not true. You're simply saying, I don't want to experience this particular situation or this particular emotion or this particular knowing. I don't want to experience that. And that's perfectly fine. You're not saying, I never want to have this again. Okay. Now, secondly, people do say, I never want to have this again. They literally renounce their spiritual abilities, which is fine. You got to do what you got to do. You're human. You can do that. Then later they come to me and they say, Susan, I renounced my spiritual abilities and now they're gone. They're not gone. You simply believe I did this. I actually did this because as a child, it was just way too much for me. And the whole thing was way too much for me. Okay. So I just basically, not only did I renounce it, but I put up boards on those doors. Like I didn't just lock the door and throw away the key. I locked the door, I threw away the key, and then I took plywood and I nailed it to the door. And then I put bracing across. I mean, literally, this is what I did. Like it was not a good, pleasant experience for me. So I blocked it to that degree. And I'm telling you that you can take the wood off, you can unlock the door, and you can interact with these energies in a safe way based on your own on your own demands or boundaries. Okay? You can do it. So if you block them, you can unblock them. If you feel that you don't have any boundaries, that thoughts and dreams just come in and you can't control it, you have boundaries. You're in the driver's seat. So what's happening right now is if you think about the timeline being a spiral, well, somehow our timeline got jammed and it crossed over on itself. It's literally crossing over on itself. It's confused. It's like if you put two different foods together that you didn't mean to put together and they got mixed. Okay? And you're like, "How do I separate this? Like this isn't what I wanted. These don't go together." Okay? So how that's going to show up in your life or how that could show up in your life is again, you have these flashbacks or fast forwards where you're experiencing different timelines. Now, that's if you don't want it, you're in the driver's seat, say, no, I don't want it. If you want to investigate your future or your multiple versions of you, now is a time that you can do so a little easier. Now, what I would suggest, and I have another video on this, and maybe the reason I'm doing this is somebody asked me about that video. So I'm going to make a note right now, put that video on this video. It's really interesting video because in that video, I actually real time with you online on the video connected with multiple versions of me in different countries, different ages, different sexes, different cultures. So it's a fascinating video to watch. So you might want to check that out next. So if you want to do that, you can sort of, take some deep breaths and you can go into a guided meditation. You can just listen to any guided meditation on YouTube that makes you calm, that relaxes you, or you can just take some deep breaths and listen to some calming music. And you can just say, what do I know without knowing how I know it? That's a very powerful statement. What do I know without knowing how I know it? You're opening the door to your subconscious because your conscious mind says, I know that I'm cool or hot. I know that I'm hungry or not hungry. I know that I'm in my office. Your subconscious knows a whole bunch of other things that your conscious mind does not want to know. Because in the human doing of your human life, it's not helpful to your brain. Your brain is like, it's not going to be helpful for me to know that there's an angel standing next to me. I need to get this work done on this deadline. So you understand what I'm saying about how your human life needs to be 95% of your work, or at least depending on the kind of work you do, maybe even 80%. But that doesn't mean that you can't take 5 or 10% of your human day and connect to the angel or connect to your spirit guide or connect to multiple versions of you that are living right now. The thing that I would really caution you against is getting involved in those lives. Please understand why all this is happening. Okay. It's not for anybody to fix anything. You're not fixing them, right? They're not fixing you. That's not the point here. The point is for you to live your human life and you to work on you. If you want to peek into their lives, you can. But then I want you to come back to your human life and think about how that life, what lesson that life is teaching you, or what does that life help you understand about your life? Like one of my lives was, and it's the first one that I became aware of, is this woman who's about 20 years younger than me, but she shares a lot of the kind of when you get down to brass tacks, we have kind of the similar life problems or life conundrums. It's fascinating, right? Because she's like a kind of a scientist. She lives in a different country. She's in her head a lot, thinking all the time, ruminating all the time, just like me. Um, she doesn't understand how people see her. She's a lot like me. Okay. And so it's fascinating for me to say, wow, she's kind of going through some similar things that I am. And you know, I can say, wow, I hope she figures it out, right? But that's her life. It's a spiral. She's on a different part of the spiral. They shouldn't touch, but they are right now. So it's causing some mayhem because it's disrupting the timeline. Okay. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Another version of me was a very young child in an African nation. I can't remember exactly the continent of Africa. Another version of me was a very old man. So you could, if you just said, "What do I know?" without knowing how I know it, what other versions of me out there? And this is where you play and you just write it down. Because if you don't write it down, your brain is going to discard it as nonsense. I promise you, if you do not write it down, your brain will not remember it because it makes no sense to your brain. So you write it down and you say, I feel like it's a man. I feel like it's a woman. I feel like this person is 20 or 30. I feel like they dress like this. I feel like they live in a place that reminds me of this. It's playful. Your subconscious is not worried about paying the bills. Okay? Your subconscious can be play. It's your imagination. And you're like, "Well, Susan, if I'm imagining it, is it true?" Is it? Maybe, maybe not, right? That's for you to decide. I happen to know that it's true because I do this work. And when I interact with people, I know things about them that they don't know I should know. So I've come to trust it. I trust what I get. I also understand that when I'm working on myself, it could be metaphorical. Well, working on anything, it could be a metaphor or it could be straight reality. So there's a lot of room here for you to figure out things and to play. It's not black and white. It's just not. Okay. So in that way, you could sort of play with it and you'll know because why would I come up with someone who's a scientist who, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't ever want to be a scientist. Why didn't I pick a rock star? Why didn't I pick a millionaire, a billionaire? So if you're asking why aren't I making this up? Would you make up being an old man in another country? Is that something you would make up? So you can also question it that way, right? Is this true? Well, probably because if I was choosing my other self, they would be a multi-billionaire, right? So, you know, you can kind of test what you get in this way. Whatever you peak, whatever you find, I really want you to be at peace with it. I don't want you to be, oh my God, I'm poor and I'm a street beggar. That person signed up for that life. Okay. I'm telling you right now, they signed up for that life. What you can do, if you want to use this to the highest good, what you can do is you can say, where in my life, do I feel less than? Where am I begging for people to respect me? Where am I begging for someone to give me a raise? Where am I not standing in my power? Because there is a thread that's attached to all the lives. It's not, you might have 10 things you came here to learn in this life. And one of those things, just one of the 10, is relevant to these other lives. So it's not like you're all trying to learn the same things because I'm in the United States of America. It's a very different environment in which to exist than, say, another country. So we're not going to be learning the same things, but there's a thread there. So if you find yourself to be very old and the person is somebody who lives off the land and they're very calm and they're just very grounded. Maybe they're poor, but they're calm and they're grounded and they're happy with their life. What can you learn about your life from that? So the best way to use this is to figure out what can I learn from them, right? So in your own life, what I want you to do is get outside of your normal conception of yourself. And I want you to walk 360 degrees around you. What do kids think about you? What does your neighbor think about you? What does your spouse? What is your work? What do you think about you? I'm not saying that you have to give them power over who you are, but I'm saying that it's interesting how other people see you. And also interesting is that the truth? Is that really your truth? Or are you creating a situation where the people around you are simply mirroring back to you what you want them to mirror back to you? If you're afraid to step into your power and you surround yourself with people who constantly feel like they have to help you, then you've created an environment in which you can never do anything on your own because everybody thinks that you need to help. You created that. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you because as you grow evolutionary, as you grow spiritually with your spiritual awakening, that's not going to work because all these people may see you as, let's say, all the people around you see you as a number cruncher and a super like realistic person. And then you go through a spiritual awakening, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, everything's going to be fine. And I'm meditating all the time. And I just can't be upset about that. And they're going to look at you like you've lost your mind because you picked these people. You picked every person in your life, didn't you? You chose that job. You stayed with it. You could have left it. You chose those friends. You chose that spouse. These people are reflecting what you think about yourself. So it's important to know what they're showing you so that then you can go within and say, this is or isn't me. Now, when these timelines converge, the problem with it is that you're not choosing it and it's just like cold water thrown on you wherever you are. And it's not as educational as you saying, I want to go see who my other multiple realities or multiple lives are. That's intentional and educational. You're saying, I want to see it. I want to know what I can learn. When you're just standing in the kitchen and all of a sudden you have an awareness of the future or the past, along with emotions and feelings embedded in that, it's not just a vision, it's actually a full version of that reality where you have the emotions too. That can be very they want to say the word dismantling, but I guess it can dismantle your reality. Just put an end to that and say, I don't want to experience that. Now, let's say it's something they're showing you the future and you say, oh, like this literally happened to me. I saw the future in my mind's eye when I was in my kitchen. I saw the future and I thought, and it did dismantle me. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for that. Right? I'm not. What if somebody said to you in 5 months, XYZ is going to happen? And it's a huge change to you. And you're like, no, I can't do that in 5 months. Like, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that in 5 months. So you can see how that would be very dismantling to your reality, right? So these things can be unwanted because now you have 5 months to worry. And it wasn't anything bad that was going to happen to me. It was actually something I've been asking for. But, asking for something and then getting it is, I don't know. You find out immediately whether or not you really wanted what you asked for. I would say that. Or you're like, wait a minute, I need more time to get ready or whatever it is, right? I mean, again, it's dismantling to your reality. It's dismantling to your human awareness or your human experience. Okay. So if it's in the future, just take a beat and say, okay, write it down again, write everything down, and then ask for more guidance. Because if it's in the future, you have free will. You can deny it 98% of the time. You can deny it. You can turn it down. But generally speaking, it's for your best good. So why would you want to turn it down? So then you take a pen to paper or you start getting on your keyboard and you say, what are the pros and cons to this future that I saw? It goes all the way back to the beginning of the video. Who am I? What do I want? What is my authenticity? Not what people reflect back to me. Maybe I created that persona to be safe. Maybe I created the overworker, the person who has all the answers, the person who excels at work because that was safe. But in reality, I'm really an artist on the inside. That incongruity of you being the artist and you being the overworker, it gets further and further apart. Pretty soon. It's not sustainable. It's not supportable anymore. So you can acknowledge the way to handle that. If you're like, Susan, that's me. I'm one thing to everybody, but I feel like I'm somebody else and I don't know how to fix that. So how you fix that without waiting until spirit fixes it for you, okay, is you start bringing a little bit more of that other person into reality. So if you're a person that's always an overachiever, you're doing more for everybody than you're doing for yourself. If that's your issue, if that's the identity that you created because it's the one that was less friction and the one that got people off your back, and it's like, I just need to survive, then the first thing you want to do is baby steps. You want to go to those people and say, you know what, it's come to my attention, or you can even blame it on a book. I read a book. Sometimes it helps to have or I have a therapist. Sometimes it helps to have an outside reason. Get a therapist, read a book on boundaries and say, it's come to my attention that I feel that I'm not getting enough support and I need some more support. And therefore, I'm asking for this to be done. So these are baby steps, right? You're not going to, if you do it this way, you're coming into your true authentic self. And then those people can be on board or not be on board on a step-by-step basis, instead of you waking up and saying one day, that's it, I'm unhappy in this marriage, I'm unhappy in this job, and I'm quitting my career and I'm quitting the marriage. You know what I mean? That's where you're going, right? But you can attend to this with baby steps. So when you have these timeline things, crossings, that's what's happening. What's happening is spirit is asking you to figure out who you are. Who is the authentic version of you? Is it this, oh my God, I'm a pirate because the timeline has mixed together and now I'm feeling that I was a really bad person, right? I mean, wow, am I a really bad person? Wow, I was a really bad person in this past life. Okay. How do you square that with who you are? Right? Maybe you're a bad person to yourself in this lifetime. Maybe you're not a bad person to everybody else, but you're negative and cynical and critical to you. So do you understand how there's multiple layers here in all of this? It's not black and white. The whole message is find your authenticity. Who are you? And you can find this out by looking at how other people see you. You can find this out by looking at your other lifetimes and see what they're experiencing. And you can find it out by accidentally tripping over another timeline and it being shown to you. This can happen in dreams. This can happen in, like I say, flashbacks where you have a knowing, you have a feeling, all of those things. So I feel like this energy that we're in right now, and again, this could happen over and over and over again. I don't think this is a one-time energetic thing. I think this is going to be a continuing energetic situation where it shakes humans up and it takes us out of our out of our little tunnel vision and says, oh, whoops, I bumped into another version of me. Oh, I bumped into a future version of me. Oh, I bumped into a past version of me. It's meant to shake you up. It's meant for you to figure out all that is true. The past, the future, the way other people see you, your multiple timelines, it's all true. But the most true thing is right here, right now in you at this moment. This is the thing that matters. It's sort of like if you're driving a car and you're worried about a car that's across town and just ran a stop sign. Doesn't really affect you, even if that car belongs to a friend. So, you know, you have to focus on you and your car, but at the same time, allow yourself to bring in external information and then use it to help you. So if your friend ran a stop sign across town, you're going to hear about it, right? Like they're going to tell you, my God, I ran a stop sign and this car barely missed me. What does that tell you about you? This is what they're trying to say to you. It's not, please stop worrying about everybody else. Oh my God, I'm so worried about my friend because she's got so much work. She's not thinking clearly and she ran a stop sign. That happened. That's a message for you. That's not a message for them. That's a message for you. My friend ran a stop sign because she's so busy at work and she's not thinking clearly. What does that mean for me? That's the message here. All of these things are messages for you to help you understand your true authentic self and what is happening. So if your friend did that, then it means that I would say, where in my life am I over producing or over focused that I'm not focused on this other thing? When you get spiritual messages, it's always about you. Even if something's happened in the bigger world around you, it's about you. So if I'm worried about somebody doing something in my government, how is that playing out in my life? Am I giving my power away somewhere in my life? Is there somebody in my life that maybe I trust that I shouldn't trust? And it's not at all about freaking out, and becoming over analytical. It's not about that at all. It's gentle. It's just taking a playful, gentle awareness. It's not black and white. It's, you guys, this life is not, here's a square peg, put it in the square hole. Here's a yellow, that's over. That timeline is over. Now we have a square peg and we realize that if I think that it's a circle, it becomes a circle and I can put it in the circle. This is a whole different paradigm. Okay, a whole different paradigm. So when you learn these things about yourself, the thing is not to be critical. The thing is not to say, God, Susan, that happened to them and now it's going to happen to me. You're not going to run a stop sign. It's not that black and white. It's simply a gentle message, a very gentle message that, I wonder if they're trying to tell me if I'm over producing or overthinking and I should maybe tap in a little bit more and be more grounded, right? It's that kind of energy. They're simple, easy, gentle messages. Now, it is true that if you don't pay attention to the easy, gentle messages, sometimes they become louder and more not gentle. And then pretty soon they fix it for you. So, like if you're overworking and you keep getting these messages not to overwork, and then you get sick and you can't work, how that works is they'll start to give you a little pushback, just a little, like something's not working. Like this thing that always works so easy for you, it's not working. You're like, why isn't that working? Like, what's going on there? It's not working. What do we do? Push harder. Oh, I got to try harder. I got to focus. Leave me alone. I got to focus. But in reality, that was a message. This is not the direction to go. You're spinning your wheels. You're working harder to make something work. That's a message. That's the wrong direction. So pay attention to the gentle messages before they give you the big message, which is, I tried to get my computer to work and I knew that it was low on memory, and I kept deleting things, and I kept trying to like baby it, or my car, I kept trying to baby it, and then it just stopped working because I didn't pay attention to all the warnings. Okay? Your authentic self is the same thing. Your authentic self wants to be an artist. Your authentic self wants to be respected. Wants to be respected. And you can either go and say, I need to put up some boundaries, or let's go to therapy together, or let's try to work through this because I'm pretty serious about this. Or you can wait until you are absolutely PO'd and ready to throw everything out the window, the baby, the bathwater, everything out the window, because you can't deal with it anymore. And people that don't have coping mechanisms, that's how we do. We wait until we can't take it anymore, and then we quit or we get out of the relationship. But another way to do this is to do the baby steps, right? Do the baby steps, get the guidance, tell people who your authentic self is. Pay attention to who your authentic self is yourself. Write a list. Who am I? What do I want to be? How am I? How do I feel like I'm showing up in the world? And how is that different than I really want to show up in the world? Okay. I'll put that other video down below in the description or at the end of the video here. And this is a series of over 111 videos that are all free here on YouTube. You can watch them. There's so many topics that would help you grow. The whole idea behind this video series is to help you be more spiritual, or to help you understand why you're here on this earth, your soul contract, past current incarnations, future incarnations, ghosts, spirits, mediumship, psychic, intuitive, you name it. I've covered it. They are channeled. So check them out. Hit the playlist. The playlist will also be at the end of this video, and just see what strikes your fancy. Why not do something to enrich yourself? Also, I have classes coming up if you're interested. Your Soul's Destiny, that's a class that I have coming up. Also, I have an online community with over 850 people that do this. We talk about, what does this dream mean that I had? What do you think it means when this happens? Or I think this happened. Or I pulled a tarot spread. What do you think? I had a dream, whatever. Also, there's a political side, there's a spiritual side. It's all there for you. It's $12 a month. You can cancel, you can join anytime you want. It's basically like Facebook, just for you. It's not owned by any corporation. It's owned by Susan Lynn. So it's a safe place to go. If you're interested, you can check it out at my website, www.susanlynnmedium.com. Again, the information will be in the description. I hope to see you next Wednesday. Take really, really good care of yourself. And remember, this is a journey. Try not to be critical of yourself. Try not to be judgmental of yourself. We are all things at all times. Nobody is perfect, okay? Take really good care. I'll see you again next Wednesday.